Today, we're going to talk about how pain can become a conditioned response and how we can change this. So, let's get into it. Conditioned responses are when the brain makes associations between a condition and an adverse outcome. Now, this happens all the time in pain. When we're in chronic pain, the brain's constantly making associations between a condition and what causes pain. The problem is when your pain's neuroplastic, your brain starts to make mistaken condition responses. And I had all sorts of these. But the most common one that I had was with couches. Now, when I would sit on a couch, my back pain would be so bad. Within a couple of minutes, my back would hurt immensely. Now, you can imagine what my brain was learning at some point is that couches equals danger. And as a result, when I would sit on a couch, my pain would get triggered. Now, the difficult part here is then I actually thought that couches was causing my back pain. It was somehow causing my spine to be in such a way that it would worsen it. I was so worried my spine was like bent weird or twisting when I'd sit on a couch. And so you can see how I developed a big fear of couches. And think about this in your own life. Are there things that you associate with your pain? Is it walking or certain movements or certain times of day or the weather or smells or sounds? The brain is really good at making associations. It's great at it. It's trying to protect you. But the problem is when the pain's neuroplastic, it's not the actual condition that's causing the pain. It's just the fact that the brain has learned at some point that this condition is dangerous. And so with couches, my brain had a strong association that couch equals danger. And so I would sit on a couch and there would be pain. Now the problem here as well is that we start to avoid these. We avoid condition responses almost at any cost. And so I kid you not, it was probably 1 or 2 years where I barely sat on a couch because I just felt it was too scary and too dangerous. And so with condition responses, when they start to happen by mistake, it keeps us believing, especially when it's around movement or position, it keeps us believing that our body's actually damaged. And it makes sense that my pain's being triggered because when I move or I sit or I stand, there's pain. So there must be something physically wrong. Now, if you have condition responses that have nothing to do with the body, that's a real sign and evidence that your pain's neuroplastic. For instance, I had this green plaid shirt that I bought in the midst of me being in pain. And I remember at the time I had really bad shoulder pain, especially in my right arm, and it would almost go all the way down to my fingertips. Now, I remember going to the mall with my partner and buying this green plaid shirt. And for a few days when I was wearing it, my right arm and shoulder would hurt so much in it. Now, I came up with all sorts of reasons why this was happening. The main one being that there was something weird about the seam here, or it was putting my arm in a weird position, because we come up with stories. We come up with stories about why a condition is causing pain. And that's what I did. I thought, the green shirt caused us pain. And so as a result, I stopped wearing it. And even, a couple of weeks ago, I found it in my closet and I put it on. And for a minute or two, I felt some sensation, some pain sensations in my arm. I hadn't worn this shirt in probably 5 or 6 years because I was terrified of it. But I was able to eventually wear the shirt again. Now, the same goes when we're trying to break condition responses. This is the question everyone wants to know. Can you break a condition response? And the answer is you totally can. If your pain's neuroplastic or you have mind-body concerns, you can break these condition responses. And we want to do that. Because until I started to break these condition responses of sitting on couches or movements, it was hard for me to believe that my pain was neuroplastic. Now, I sit on couches all the time now. In fact, last night, I passed out on my couch because I was so relaxed. And so you get the sense that I'm able to do this again. So it totally is possible. There is hope to break these conditioned responses. It just takes practice and a bit of a formula and then exploring using the formula. So I'm going to explain the formula now for breaking conditioned responses. So the first thing is you want to start off by gathering evidence. See if you've ever done this certain condition, this position, movement, or maybe a time of day, and there hasn't been pain. Because that's a clear sign. If positions or movements were triggering the pain, it's going to do it every time if it's structurally caused. So at first, you just want to look for evidence. Like, were there times where I sat on a couch that there wasn't pain, or the pain was lower? And there was a few times where 5 or 10 minutes I would sit and I was just distracted or enjoying myself, and the pain wasn't there. And so I started to gather evidence that couches doesn't equals danger. It's just my brain has interpreted that couches equals danger, not that actually couches triggers pain. And so by doing this, by starting to gather evidence and look for this, you can start to break that association just logically. Now the next step, and you're probably not going to like it, but the next step in breaking conditioned responses is gradual exposure. You need to gradually expose yourself to the conditioned response. Now, I want to say here, if you've been told by a practitioner not to do a certain movement or position, I'm not saying go and do that. That's not what I mean. But if they're not finding something structurally wrong, and it seems like the pain's neuroplastic, we need to start to slowly expose ourselves to things that we fear, to things that typically trigger pain. And so what I would do is I would sit on a couch, maybe for 5 or 10 minutes at a time at first. And I would do something very similar to somatic tracking. So you can utilize somatic tracking here as you're starting to do this. And so I would sit on the couch and I would, do this somatic tracking kind of informally, just checking in, giving a message of safety. And I started to do this, the fear and the frustration and the sadness about sitting on couches started to reduce. Now, the beautiful part, as you start to gradually expose yourself, is you start to get more exceptions. So my biggest exception with sitting on couches was I was watching a romantic comedy with my partner, and I do love romantic comedies, I'll admit. And I got this warm, fuzzy feeling inside. I was talking to my partner, we were having a great time, and it had been probably 40 minutes, maybe an hour, and I realized, like, whoa, I'm not in pain. And so what happened here is I naturally got a new exception. I got a new exception because I slowly exposed myself. And that exception was huge because it really made me believe, you know what? There is nothing wrong with my back. I'm actually able to sit on couches. Couches don't equal pain. This equation has kind of been broken now because I have this huge exception. But I only got that by slowly, gradually exposing myself. Now, with somatic tracking and doing this, I want to state here that create messages of safety around the conditioned response. So it was really important for me to put in my messages of safety in somatic tracking that, I'm safe to sit on this couch. My brain has just interpreted couches equals danger, but couches don't actually equal danger. My body's okay. So that's just an example, but tie it into the messages of safety because we want to teach our brain. What we're teaching our brain is that this position or movement or condition is actually safe. And by gradually exposing, using somatic tracking, and having specific messages of safety, we can start to do this. Now, the last thing I want to talk about here is, pairing your conditioned response with something pleasant. This is really important. Breaking and starting to expose yourself to conditioned responses is scary. It really is. So, what I did with the romantic comedy as an example is I paired it with something pleasant. I was in this enjoyable, light, easy, I felt this warm feeling inside. And so with couches, the thing that I would pair is lighthearted TV. At the time, I was watching Modern Family. And so when I would watch Modern Family, just a goofy show, but I love it. I've seen it probably 4 times through. and I think there's like 11 seasons. So a lot of Modern Family. But I would watch Modern Family, lean into the light, goofiness, playfulness in the show, and then check in with my body, give myself a message of safety, explore the sensation, and then lean back into the show. And so you can naturally maximize your chances of that fear reducing of the condition response and you starting to get exceptions by leaning into something pleasant and pairing with something pleasant. So it doesn't have to be TV shows. It could be your favorite playlist of songs, right? If sitting at the dinner table is hard when you're practicing this, you could eat your favorite snack. So there's lots of ways that we can do this. Sometimes it's just as simple as leaning in to the nice sensation of our breathing. So I hope this video was helpful. Again, go slow, right? And by no means am I saying go and do positions or movements that you've been told not to do. That's not the point. But if you're on this journey and you're ready to break condition responses, I'm just explaining like a formula that typically is used for this. So please put your questions or comments down below. Hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to my channel because I'm going to continue releasing videos talking about neuroplastic pain, mind-body concerns, and pain reprocessing therapy. And I want to state here that what I went through today, the information is from pain reprocessing therapy. And so engaging in this model can be really beneficial to starting to eliminate or reduce your pain. So please take care, and I'll see you soon.